Good morning, everyone. It is 10 a.m., so I'm going to go ahead and get the meeting started. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our speaker. It is Andrea. Just a little bit about her. Andrea is the new Family and Consumer Science Health and Wellness 4-H Extension Assistant Professor in Washington County. She earned her master's degree in Recreation Management and Youth Leadership from Brigham Young University and considers herself a lifelong learner in constant pursuit of greater knowledge, especially when it's accompanied with adventure. Andrea grew up in rural Texas, but found herself transplanted into Utah upon attending BYU and working summers as a whitewater river guide in the Grand Canyon. Her passion for such things as adventure, the outdoors, science, traveling, animals, upcycling, frugal living, and the environment led her to Extension as a volunteer many years ago. She guided her 4-H robotics club to multiple championships and also coached her 4-H Envirothon club through the state championships and to nationals. She now looks forward to working as an extension faculty and the opportunities the position brings to reach out to the youth and families in the community with innovative programming to address concerns such as obesity, mental health, individuals and families, civic engagement, and youth development. Andrea has 5 children and takes pride in the fact that she and her husband started their hashtag opt outside for Thanksgiving long before it was the cool thing to do. For years, they have carried the tradition of foregoing the huge meal and instead going hiking on Thanksgiving Day. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Andrea, if you are ready, I am just going to turn the time over to you.
Okay, gotta unmute myself first. Okay, first of all, that's like the introduction they used when I very first got hired. I make it much shorter now, so sorry you guys had to listen to all of that because I have now learned that, I can say it in like 3 sentences, but thanks for reading that, Amalia. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and we're just gonna get started right away. Do I have permission to share? I guess I'll find out soon enough, right?
You should be able to. Let me know if you can't.
Oh, can you guys see my screen? Anybody? So
Yes,
okay,
we can see it.
got a thumbs up. Okay. All right. So this month was, I forgot the actual title, National Parks and Recreation Month. And so we're going to talk a little bit about getting outside, which, as you heard in my introduction, has been kind of a big part of my life. I do have a lot of fond memories of running through the woods as a kid and just spending all day outside waiting for my mom. There was a lot of us, and we kind of lived in an area where people on 2 and 3 acres. So my mom had a big rebar triangle, just like in the movies or in the Old West or whatever. And she'd ring that thing when it was dinner time, and the neighbors would laugh because they're like, well, sometimes we think we should just come over when we hear the Torgerson dinner bell. But we could hear it through the woods and we'd come home and, that would kind of indicate it was the end of the day for us and time to clean up. But let's start out. I love this quote that I have on the front screen. Of all the paths you take in life, make sure a few of them are dirt. As we talk today, and maybe a lot of you are already aware of it, but there's a lot of studies out there that talk about the value of being outside and being in nature. And I personally am a fan of dirt because I think it does a lot for us. And so, but let's move on. I have a question for you guys. I want you to think about, is nature nice or is it necessary? And I thought about doing breakout rooms, but since it's summertime and I wasn't sure how many people we'd have on today, I think we'll just stick to the big group. But if you're brave enough to share your thoughts on that, if you would unmute and tell us what you think. There's not a right or wrong answer. I'm just curious how people view it right now. So is there anybody out there wants to tell us what they think? Or we could throw it in the chat. I could watch the chat, I guess. Let me find that.
So I have a thought about this. I was just studying vitamin D this morning. And if you don't know, or not you, Andrea, but if anyone here doesn't know, that's the sunshine vitamin, right? So you get outside and you get vitamin D and you make that. But anyway, and how deficiency in that has become more prevalent since we've industrialized in our nation and in other nations, and how people are spending more time inside. So in that way, I think that nature is absolutely necessary because it's important for our health. But I think, unfortunately, in today's world, I think that a lot of us live as if it's nice. It's just a nice thing that we get to enjoy sometimes.
Thanks, Hiram. Yeah, that vitamin D stuff, that's fascinating because, years ago, I remember as a kid reading the Reader's Digest and learning that there were kids, I think in New York, that never got outside. They lived in like these tiny little apartments. I just have vague memories of the article, but how, they would get rickets. I mean, their legs would curve, because they didn't have the vitamin D that was necessary. And maybe it was an article talking about vitamin D in milk or something. I don't know. But I agree with you, Hiram. I think it is a little bit necessary for some of those benefits. And it is nice. I'm looking in the chat. There's some people that said necessary. But it's just something I want you to think about, especially as we talk today. And just kind of, I think it's a two-edged sword. I really think, like Hiram said, it is kind of a nice thing, but I think there are reasons that it is necessary. So a few fun facts. Let me close the chat for a second so I can see. So did you guys know that the average 11 to 14-year-old spends more than 8 hours in front of a screen each day? And that does not count schoolwork. That's just entertainment, mindless viewing, whatever you want to call it. That's a lot of hours. That's what, a third of the day? That's how many hours we're supposed to be sleeping too. And then also I was fascinated when I came across this bottom fact: the average American spends more than 11 hours a day absorbing media. Now that may not be looking at the screen, but think about how much media we use in the day. I mean, we're on our phones, we're on our computers, we listen to podcasts, we listen to music, our playlists, whatever. And that's a huge shift over the years compared to, when you look at people that just spent their days out raising the food that they had to eat that day or whatever. We're gonna go right. There's a video here, and this pretty much sums up kind of what we're gonna be talking about today. So I thought we'll show it in this cute video, and then we'll talk about it some more and kind of reinforce that. So it's just a couple minutes.
Many of us spend the vast majority of our lives indoors, surrounded by metal and plastic, under fluorescent lights, staring at bright screens while breathing in stale, polluted air. We've become addicted to technology and man-made innovation, but the truth is, nature had it right all along. Researchers are just discovering what cavemen knew for thousands of years. Nature has incredible healing powers. New studies suggest that contact with nature is extremely beneficial, leading to improvements in mood, cognition, and health. Scientists have found that being surrounded by nature and feeling happy are indeed connected. There is an amazing perfection and beauty in nature that has an extraordinary way of centering us. When we step into a natural landscape, our bodies experience a shift from the sympathetic division of the central nervous system, which handles stress, to the parasympathetic division, which handles rest. This activates the body's relaxation response, wherein breathing slows down and deepens, internal dialogue becomes less incessant, worries are less pressing, and one is able to appreciate the present moment. So if you're feeling depressed or uninspired, escape the urban cage and go into the wild. The Japanese have an expression for this type of getaway called shirin-yoku, which translates to forest bathing. Shirin-yoku can be defined as taking in the atmosphere of the forest in order to recharge the soul. Immersing yourself in a natural green environment not only has massive mental benefits, but it has also been shown to heal the physical body as well. In 1984, a classic study found that hospital patients recovered from surgery quicker if their room offered a view of nature compared to those who looked out on a brick wall. Another study published in 2003 found that the health of every single bodily system increased with the amount of green space in one's living environment. The 21st century is a hard time to live, with crowded streets, skyscrapers, traffic, smog, and trash everywhere. one can feel like they are suffocating. So make it a priority to go outside, deep into nature, and truly appreciate our natural sanctuaries. And please leave the Pokemon game at home. For more interesting videos like this one, please subscribe.
Okay, so my kids would argue that leave the Pokemon game at home, because it was actually my kids that explained to me, are you guys familiar with the Pokemon Go? I'm hoping that you guys have heard of that. I'm a little bit behind, so usually if I've heard of it, most other people have. But you know, I'm not a huge fan of the video games, but it was my oldest boy who explained to me that one reason they created that particular game was as incentive to get people outside and to get people going and looking for these Pokemons. I thought that was kind of fascinating. Just a little trivia he was trying to convince me that we could merge technology and my strong belief of being outside, and that we could bring them together. And so I didn't research that. I was totally trusting my son on that, but he said that that was why the creators came up with that game. So kind of fascinating, whether it's true or not. He was trying to convince me it was a good thing. But the video mentioned a bunch of the benefits of being outside. So I just wanted to kind of highlight those again and go over them briefly. There's physical benefits, there's mental benefits, and even there's what we would call relational benefits. So anybody want to take a stab at some of what the physical benefits are? You can throw it in the chat or just unmute and speak out. Maybe you were dozing during the video, but I'm sure you could guess at what some of them are. Vitamin D from sunshine, thanks. Debbie, we did talk about that briefly. Increased physical activity. Okay, now we're rolling. We have a quiet group today, so I will, and I guess there'll probably be people watching the video later. So we'll just kind of, oh, I like that. When I'm outside and in nature, I feel less stressed. That's definitely a benefit too. I'm going to go ahead and pull up these bullet points if I can find my cursor. So I appreciate your input. So one of them is the increased physical activity. There was a research that was done, I think, by some British researchers. I'm just going to double check that. But they found that children especially are more than doubly active when they are outside versus when they're inside. And you know, when you think about when you were a kid and you get to get out, you go out the door for recess or whatever, and you've got that wide open space, it just sort of encourages you to move, because you're not confined by the walls and the rules of being quiet and moving, you know, gently through the classroom or the house or whatever. Another one is, I thought this was interesting, but better blood sugar control. So for diabetics, when they spend time outside, there are research studies that have shown that they are able to control their blood sugar a little better. And probably that's tied into the activity and some of the other benefits. We have lower blood pressure, a lower likelihood of cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, respiratory, and digestive diseases. It actually promotes physical healing and curtails the need for painkillers. And in society today, where so many people get caught up with those painkillers, and we're finding that how addicting they can be, I think it's awesome to have an activity, knowing that going outside and being among nature could possibly be one of the remedies that could help lessen that need for painkillers. They did a study, and they mentioned it in the video, but they did a study with people who'd had surgery, and found that they, for the first study was if they had a window that looked outside and they had natural light coming in, that they relied less on the pain medications than people who just saw the brick wall. And I was just looking for my notes right here that it did say that in 2005, there was a study by spinal surgery patients that experienced less pain and stress and took fewer pain medications during their recoveries if they were exposed to natural light and were outside. So that's kind of a bonus. Okay, so that's some of the physical benefits. Some of the mental benefits, which is a huge thing that a lot of us are hearing about nowadays, and a lot of the depression, anxiety that youth and even adults are facing, especially during the pandemic. I think we saw an increase in a lot of that among people that maybe didn't anticipate that would happen to them. But one of the benefits of nature, they've done studies and there's better cognitive development in children, and even they have learned that there's a better retention for new concepts. We, down here in St. George, I'm on a coalition called Healthy Dixie. And this last year, one of our big pushes was to bring a biking program into one of the elementary schools. It's called Riding for Focus, and it's sponsored by the bicycle company Specialized. And they've done a lot of research, and they have this program nationwide in different schools. But what their research suggested was that kids who spent 20 minutes outside biking during the school day, they had an increase in their performance in their schoolwork. And for kids who, especially, they noticed a change in kids who had attention deficit disorder and ADHD and some of those conditions that made it difficult for them to sit in the classroom and to learn. They saw an improvement in their achievement in the classroom. So that, to me, that's a huge thing. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I've got two of them at one time. So improved mental well-being, decreased anxiety and negative thinking come when we're outside. We have lower levels of depression and stress, which somebody mentioned in the chat. A lower likelihood to suffer from neurological diseases, an increase in creativity. Have any of you felt like you're either having writer's block trying to put together your presentation, or even learn the material that you're going to teach that day or the next day, and you just can't quite focus? Has anybody tried getting up and taking a walk outside just around the block and then in the park that's in your neighborhood? I know that has worked for me, and I actually started trying it after I read a study that said it is helpful in kind of helping us have those aha moments, and it stimulates our brain. So I actually love that benefit. And then it improves our overall mood. Oh, and one more. They have also found that people who spend time outside tend to have they've seen an increase in self-esteem. So definitely some good benefits and reasons to be outside. I also mentioned earlier the relational health. If any of you guys have heard Dr. Dave Schramm, which I think he's presented to the Create Better Health group, but he talks about resilience, and one of the keys to helping build resilience is having good relationships with, connectivity with other people. So when we spend time outside, it's an easy opportunity to invite somebody along, whether it's our kids, a friend, a coworker. I know that for me, sometimes I kind of came out of retirement to work this job, and I spent a lot of time being outside, and now I find myself in my office a little bit more. And so when I need to speak to a colleague, or even when I've had like a staff meeting, if it's not too hot, St. George can be kind of hot, but we'll try to walk around a little bit and maybe walk outside as we're having those meetings. And that's just one more little way to get outside, but it also helps encourage those relationships, because I don't know if you guys have ever heard about like shoulder time with your kids. It's easier to talk to your kids when you're driving in a car because they don't feel like you're staring at them and scrutinizing the answers they give. Well, I think it's kind of true too when you're if you're out hiking with somebody or out playing outside. It's a more natural way to have conversations and not what am I trying to say? Kind of breaks down some barriers, makes it a little bit easier to build those relationships. Okay, so in talking to a lot of people about getting outside and in trying to find ways to implement programs here in Washington County, and even in my past, trying to get my kids outside, sometimes there's barriers that we face. There's some misconceptions. When people hear get outside, they often automatically assume, like I should ask you guys, when you hear somebody say spend time outside or get outside, what are some of the first thoughts that come to your mind? And if you don't want to unmute, you can just throw it in the chat. I'll try to watch that. Oh, I just saw somebody's comment. Laura said she likes to let her mind wander when she's pulling weeds. I like, that's awesome too. So somebody says hiking when they think about getting outside walk. Sweating. Yep, especially here where we live.
Up until recently, fresh air.
Oh yeah, I was just up north this weekend, Teresa, and your air's a little bit not so nice up there right now, huh?
Oh my goodness, it's, yeah, so smoky.
Well, come on down to St. George and just prepare to sweat, but you will get a little bit fresher air than you have. So I like that. Somebody talks about a simple walk, going outside, walk through the garden, being active and whatever. Okay, so you guys are awesome. You guys are like the A students. Because what they have found in some of the studies they've done is when people think about going outside, it's a little overwhelming because they think that you have to do it somewhere far away. You have to travel. A lot of people think that you have to be in top physical performance and that you have to have the specific gear and expertise. I do have several friends like, well, I don't know the first thing about hiking. And I thought, well, let's just go for a walk on a little trail or something. And then a lot of people believe that it's only possible if you have a lot of extra time and money. And here in Extension, we know that extra time is not always something that we have a lot of because there's always something that we can be doing. And so I love what a lot of you guys wrote in the chat, that it can be really simple. And there's a program, and I'll have a slide about it a little bit later, but it's called Park RX. Has anybody, I'm hoping that some of you guys have heard of that, but it's a movement to actually have doctors prescribe activity outdoors before prescribing medication. And please don't get me wrong, there is a place, there's a time and a place for medication. I don't want to imply that they're not using that, but there are a lot of situations where they're finding that being outside among nature is a good remedy for some of the conditions that people are facing. So if we can realize how simple it is, which like I said, you guys are the A students, you know, you've already thought through some of that. I just wanted to highlight some of the simple ways that you can get outside and the benefits that come with it. So 10 minutes, if you can spend 10 minutes, I've got to find my notes so I make sure I tell you the right thing. Let me see. Okay, so if you can spend 10 minutes gardening or even visiting a garden, like somebody mentioned walking through the husband's garden, then they have found that just that 10 minutes can actually alleviate depression or help, you know, lessen it a little bit. Then if, oh, whoops, something happened. If you have 20 minutes and you can go hiking, bird watching, other nature activities, they have discovered that that amount of time doing activities in nature actually reduces cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So you would feel, you know, your stress load might feel light. 30 minutes in a park setting lowers, can't see because my picture's there, but it lowers blood pressure. And where do I have that? And I gotta move these people. Oh, lowers blood pressure and your heart rate, which is always a good thing. And then 45 minutes, if you have that much time and you go hiking in the mountains, they've discovered that you'll have less fatigue and higher alertness than if you spent that same amount of time on an indoor on a treadmill, even if you have it like on an incline, like you're mimicking the mountains. And then 60 minutes, if you interact with nature for 60 minutes, it actually, they have found that it can boost your memory and your attention span by 20%, which I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, that's a real bonus, because sometimes I think that my memory is not what it once was, and I will take that increase of 20%. So I have another video I just want to kind of show you guys. I think sometimes it's helpful to hear other people say things to kind of reinforce what we already know or what we've read or what we've learned. And this is a short little 2-minute video from Stanford. and I'll just let you guys see what they have to say.
Stanford University.
There's been an alarming increase in the rate of urbanization that's happening throughout the world today. We recently passed the halfway mark where 50% of humanity live in urban areas. Projections are that by 2050, we're going to be at around 70% of humanity living in urban areas. Along with this is coming a decrease in the amount of nature exposure that people have and the degree to which they interact with natural environments. And then there's a third trend, which is there's an increase in anxiety and other mental health disorders, including depression, especially in urban areas. It provides mental health benefits to people and may help buffer against the onset of things like depression and anxiety disorders. For this study, participants went for a walk, either in a natural area, which was a grassland with scattered oaks near Stanford campus, or an urban area, which was the most highly trafficked street near campus. And we also scanned their brains before and after their walks. The participants that went for a walk in a natural area had decreased levels of this rumination or brooding, kind of beating oneself up, than did the participants who went for a walk in an urban environment. This type of thinking is highly associated with the onset of depression. We looked at the parts of the brains that are active during rumination, and we noticed a decrease in the nature participants, but no change in the urban. We don't know very much yet at all about how much nature we need to get these benefits, how long we need to spend in these natural environments in order to kind of reap the benefits they provide. We also don't know how these effects differ across different people. We need to start thinking about how we can integrate nature back into cities and give people more opportunities to interact with natural environments to get those benefits that natural environments give them for their mental health.
Okay, I can never find my mouse when I do this. Oh, there it is. Okay, so just listening to him and when he talked about find ways to bring nature back into what we do, the thinking about what we do and create better health, does anything come to mind in some of the stuff that we try to promote where we could actually be, what's the word? Kind of ambassadors for this concept as well? I know that's not our job necessarily. Yeah, gardening. So we do a lot of we're encouraging them to grow little gardens or to have community gardens. And I think sometimes I teach a lot of classes for computer science, teaching unplugged activities. I know it's totally unrelated, just bear with me for a second. But one of the things I have learned in helping teachers and club leaders and different people understand why it's important to use unplugged activities where kids are not on the computer, but they can learn the same concepts. When people say, well, it's not the same, they're doing this on the computer, but when you're doing it unplugged, they don't know how it connects. Well, one thing I've learned to teach people is we have to be very intentional about what we say. We have to be intentional about the terms we use, and we have to be intentional about tying the concepts together. And I think, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably really good at doing this, but it's amazing how many people don't always connect the dots, if you want to call it. And maybe we tell them, oh, gardening's really great, or hey, when we talk about moving more, and I know we've done some campaigns about, moving in the winter and things like that, but are we intentional in explaining to them why doing it outside is important and that there's added benefits to being outside? Do we explain that? So just kind of think about that, especially as you move forward with some of the classes that you do and you're talking about community gardening, and maybe you're at the community garden helping people learn a few things there, or you're teaching how to use tomatoes or how to use the zucchini. Maybe try to throw in a few little tidbits about the benefits they're getting just being outside picking those tomatoes or picking that zucchini. I'm just checking the chat really fast. People are talking about family time and outside time together. So, Laura says when we talk about exercise with class participants, it doesn't have to be an expensive gym for health benefits, and that's what I want to touch on. Laura, that's a perfect segue into what I want to cover next. It doesn't have to be an expensive gym, and there's a lot of opportunities out there that are very low cost and very affordable, if you want to say, because they don't cost anything. One of my favorite programs that's done by the National Park Service is I gotta move the chat box. It's called Every Kid Outdoors. It was called Every Kid in the Park when they first introduced it. Just throw in the chat if you've actually taken advantage of this opportunity, or if you've even heard of it. It's where fourth graders get a free national parks pass to all federal lands and waters. So has anybody that's on this call today, have you guys used that? Did you know about it? Yeah, so Teresa, I didn't realize how long it had been around, but your kids are a little older than my kids, and you were able to do it when they were young. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been around a long time.
Okay.
And there's some fun little perks too when they're part of that. Anyway.
Well, while I have you on the line, it sounds like I'm on a phone conversation, but anyway, while you're willing to speak, would you go ahead and just maybe mention some of the perks that you found? Because that way they're not hearing everything just from me, and they know that somebody else has actually done this.
Besides getting into the park and free and not being part of the count of heads that go into a park, when you check in at a desk for tickets to things or tours to things, because it's surprising how many programs they have tied to, like, the park ranger program, that they have the benefits, and so the kids will get stickers, buttons, stamps, all of those kinds of things. It's a fun perk, and the park rangers are really into this as far as the programming. We've done it in, oh my goodness, a number of different parks when the kids were that age. I think you had to be like 10 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, there's fun little perks. They're nothing big.
Well, thanks, Teresa. And yeah, I don't know what it was before, and it's fourth graders now, so it's not based on the age, just the grade in school they are. But another perk that I learned with my kids, to add to what Teresa already mentioned, is the empowerment that it gives these young kids. And to me, that's part of the mental health benefits. So when the fourth grader has the pass, just so you know, I tried to get around the system thinking that, oh, I've got this pass, I can use it while my kids are in school. Okay, well, you do have to have the fourth grader with you, because the whole point is to get these kids, they find that kids that are about that age are excited to explore and learn about the world. And so they felt like by giving them this opportunity, this free opportunity to get into the parks, that it would help foster that desire to explore and to learn, and plant that seed that they might continue to do. And then also that it would encourage families to get out. I love all the little side benefits to some of these programs, but one that you're not going to read about, but I noticed it with my kids, is that self-esteem, and then that feeling of empowerment, because every time we stopped at a national park, it was my child that was the owner of the pass that had to put his head forward into the driver's window. Or I think, some of the parks where you have to actually get out of your car and show them your pass, I had to have the fourth grader with me. And what I loved too was that the park rangers at the parks that we went to when we were using these passes, I don't know if they were trained to do it or if they were just really smart people, but they would look directly at my fourth grader and speak to them and say, oh, so you're here to visit, Grand Canyon, or Bryce Canyon or whatever. And I would get ready to say something, and then I'd realize, oh, they're talking to my kid, not to me. And it gave my kids these chances to be these little adults and to take the pride in the fact that they were kind of the ones in charge. So that's just a little side perk that I found was pretty awesome. It kind of made them the celebrity of the family for that year. So how you go about doing this, for those of you that didn't know about it, or if you've never used it, but you didn't know about it, it's super easy. You go on to, I think you can type in Every Kid Outdoors, or Every Kid in a Park. I should pull up on my computer, but you go through this. It's just a simple step. It asks like 1 or 2 questions, and then it says, this is the paper that comes up. It says you've earned the free pass, print it off and be ready to use it. And I don't know right now if they do it, but when my kids were each this age to use it, And if anybody's currently using it, oh, thanks, Cheryl. Cheryl's my my backup, I guess. Thanks for she put the website on the chat about where you can find it. But you used to take your paper voucher in, and the first time you used it, they actually gave my kids a card like you see in the bottom of that picture where it actually said it was a 4th grade pass. I don't know if they still do that or not. But either way, you can, if you lose it, actually pretty sure they don't monitor. I think we had to print a second one off. But you do have to have it in hand. You can't have it on your phone. You can't just pull up your phone and say, oh, it's here on my screen. You actually have to have the physical paper or copy of it. And then also on the National Park Service website, they have tabs, like it has a thing for parents and for educators. And I personally feel like all of the Create Better Health ambassadors fall under the umbrella of educator. I don't think they're super technical, but when you're going into the classroom, one thing that I did discover is the teacher can actually print off, I think, up to 300 passes at once. So if you could even encourage the teachers to look at this program and, or maybe if you knew the kids, I didn't try it, but I did look at the page, and it's on the same page when you go to do it just for your personal pass. You can click on the one that says I'm an educator. And so wouldn't that be pretty awesome, especially if you're in maybe like a low income area, which is where we focus, I get. But, and if you could help the teachers learn about this, or if it was something you were able to do and the kids could go home from one of your classes with a pass into the national parks. And living here in Utah, we're super lucky. My kids get a little bitter every now and then that everybody else wants to come see all of our parks. But we have 5 national parks just right here in our state that are driving distance for all of us. And sometimes, you know, we're teaching families that the last thing they want to do is spend $30 for a day at the park or $80 for a year pass. And if you could introduce them to this free program, if they have a 4th grader, and so those of you that are in the 4th grade classes, or even tell the teachers so that they're aware of it, I mean, that would be like a Christmas present to a lot of these kids. And that might be their one opportunity to go see the Grand Canyon. I was teaching some teenagers, it's probably been 5 or 6 or 8 years ago, that were like 16 and 17 years old, and somehow we were talking about the Grand Canyon. And most of the kids in this class had grown up here in southern Utah their whole lives. They had never lived anywhere else. And there was a huge percentage of the kids in that class that had never been to the Grand Canyon. Okay, well, for us, it's a 3-hour drive. I don't feel like that's a very long drive, especially when so many people from here are going up north to go to Lagoon or do these other things. And so if we could encourage these kids to get out, it's like a domino effect. One thing leads to another. I think then the parents feel empowered because all of a sudden they're like, oh, I can do this. I've got a pass. I can take my family. So I'm just checking Teresa's comment. They have tours and hikes for youth. Yeah, and a craft. And so I didn't include a picture of it, but the Junior Ranger program, has anybody had their kids do the Junior Ranger program at any of the national parks? They usually will have, and you can go onto the National Park Service website, even type in Junior Ranger program, but it's like what Teresa said, they have little activities. It's like a scavenger hunt. It's if you participate in certain programs, and then they often will give them like a little pin that tells them that they're the Junior Ranger for that particular national park. So it's a great program. I encourage you guys to look into it because it's a free way to get outside. And like I said, we have so many opportunities here in our own state. And then the opportunities we have as Create Better Health ambassadors going into the classrooms, if we could even just encourage the teachers to be aware of this program. And like I said, the educators can print off the passes and give them to the kids. So it's kind of hard not to do it and take advantage of it. So does anybody have any questions? Oh, whoops, I already moved. I went the wrong way. Hold on, there we go. Does anybody have any questions about the 4th grade free pass? If you have any trouble with it, or if you have questions, feel free to email me later, but there's a few other programs I want to show you guys about that are also very low cost, inexpensive, that we can share with our people, and just for me to share with you guys if you're not aware of them. Another one that recently came out, and I probably should have reached out ahead of time and asked Naomi or one of the other faculty who's been involved in this, and if I think Shannon, Naomi, I know there were a couple other names, but is anybody's participated in this. This was something they just barely put out earlier this year called Hidden Gems. And it's actually, I think, on the relationship landing page for extension. But what I loved, I went through and just screenshotted a couple of the different ones that to me were specifically outdoorsy. They have several others. But this is all free as well. And we could direct people to these things when you go and you click on it, like say the park scavenger hunt. You click on it and there's actually a document that comes up and it walks you through how to go about that activity. It has questions, it has activities. And so the thing I love, that one of the other barriers that I did not put on that part about, getting outside and a barrier for it, is so often people don't know where to start and they're almost afraid. Like we're always afraid of what we don't know, right? If we don't know how to do something, aren't we a little more hesitant to dive in and do it? But it's always nicer if somebody takes us by the hand and kind of shows it to us. Well, that's what I love about these Hidden Gems programs. And I know they're still developing more, but a neighborhood scavenger hunt. If all you have time for is to go around your neighborhood, go around your block, even the green grass of the lawns and the trees growing in the yards is going to provide benefit, and you're going to be able to have those benefits of being outside. But check out that Hidden Gems page. Like I said, it's free. You can download it, and then it has all the curriculum for the different activities spelled out for you, and super awesome. If you're a tired parent, if you're a tired educator, it's always nice when somebody's done that work for you. So check that out. That's a great resource as well. And then I mentioned the Park RX Utah. This is a national program. And you can see the quote there that it doesn't take much time, just even 10 minutes, and they recognize positive benefits to people being outside. What Park RX is it encourages medical personnel to look to nature and look to prescribing trips to the park instead of automatically prescribing medication. And again, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that medication is bad or anything, but I personally like to try different options. And if I have an option that I can try first that does not possibly introduce me or my children to something that could become addictive later, because I've joked with, it's not a joke. We have a quote hanging on our wall that says, in fact, my kids quote it all the time. And I'm not making light of it, but I kind of am in our family. We were having a conversation at the dinner table with the kids, and it says, drugs are bad, drugs are addicting, we have addiction problems. Well, in our family history, there have been some family members who have struggled with addictions, and I'm a firm believer that can be, I personally feel like that could possibly be genetic, so I just don't even want to mess with it. So I've tried to teach my kids different opportunities to address different problems, just so that we can kind of steer clear of some of the things that have happened in family members' lives. And so I got so excited when I learned about the Park RX program, and to know that there are doctors out there that are looking for these other opportunities. And I just wanted to read something, because they can say it. This is from the Park RX website, but it says, for healthcare providers, there are two reasons to prescribe nature. The first has to do with what it may do for us. Exposure to non-threatening natural stimuli, scientists have discovered, lowers blood pressure, reduces stress hormone levels, promotes physical healing, bolsters immune system function, raises self-esteem, improves mood, curtails the need for painkillers, and reduces inflammation. One leading theory is that these stimuli, the scent of plants, the sight of trees swaying in the breeze, the sounds of birds, streams, and rustling leaves, combine to activate the unconsciously controlled rest and digest functions of our bodies, which are regulated by our parasympathetic nervous system. These functions are suppressed when a threatening stimulus, whether a venomous snake or an aggressive work email, triggers our sympathetic flight, fight, or freeze system. If that response stays active long enough, our immune, digestive, reproductive, and psychological health suffers. In an increasingly urbanized world, in other words, nature cues our brains to shift us from a depleting to a restoring state. So I couldn't say it any better than that. Keep that in the back of your mind. Again, maybe when you're talking to some of the people that you work with, even mentioning the fact that doctors are turning to nature as an official prescription. There was a news show. I think it was on NBC Nightly News. It was a little video that I came across. And they actually were talking to a family that the mother was experiencing a lot of anxiety and depression. And she noticed that her 9-year-old son was starting to experience it as well. And her doctor was part of the Park RX program. And he prescribed 30 minutes in a nearby local park 5 days a week. And after 3 weeks of following that prescription, I mean, you know, it takes a little effort because you don't just go to the pharmacy and get the bottle and come home and set your timer, you know, your alarm to take your pill every day. You have to set your alarm to actually go to the park. But that family reported seeing major changes after just 3 weeks of following that prescription. So just another thing to help our people that we work with be aware of, and even ourselves, how beneficial being outside can be, such that there are doctors across the nation now that are using that as an official prescription for some of their patients. And then another, oh, well, that's not where I want to go. Hold on, I skipped one. Okay, so this is another one of my favorite programs that if you haven't heard of, I want to make sure that you're aware of. And I find it interesting that the national program is now called Every Kid Outdoors. Like I said, it was once called Every Kid in the Park, because their goal was to get every kid to a national park. But Utah has their very own initiative, and theirs is also called Every Kid Outdoors, but I think they named it while the other one was still Every Kid in the Park. But this little passport, if you go to, if you type in Every Kid Outdoors Utah, you have to put Utah in there or you'll just get the national park one. But the initiative is to get kids doing things outside. And again, on their website, there's a lot of resources and you can explore. There's a tab for educators, there's a tab for parents. And I actually had a volunteer come to me this last year and she wanted to do an outdoor club because she actually works in the medical field and has been shocked at how many cases of anxiety and depression that she addresses on a daily basis with both youth and adults. And she has children of her own. And so we started we called it was a 4-H adventure club. And I printed off these Explorer passports. The picture you see on the screen is exactly how it prints off, and it tells you where to fold it. And so at one of our first, we did a hike once a month and then a couple other meetings here and there. And I gave each of the kids one of these passports and I said, okay, we're going to be doing things in our club, but I want you to take this home and do these things with your family. And I know you can't read it on the screen, but they're super simple. One of them says, observe nature and wildlife in Utah, gaze at the starry sky, bring along a friend to nearby nature, follow a trail, plant a seed. There's about, I think it's 10 activities. But the thing I love is once you complete them, you can mail it into the address that's on the passport, and they will send a certificate and a prize. And one of the club members sent me a picture. He had just gotten his prize a couple weeks ago. And they've had, local outdoors gear companies donate some things. And he received a solar lantern, like the kind that it opens, like it collapses so you can pack it in your bag easy. And it's kind of like those Lucy lanterns that first came out. Anyway, it's solar powered, collapses down. And so he's able to add that to his outdoor gear so that he's building up this equipment that he didn't have to spend money for and able to help use it to take his family camping or whatever. And he was so excited to get the prize. So it's a great program. Look into it. Like I said, there's only 10 activities and they're pretty general. Like I think one was be a steward and take care of Utah's outdoor places. So take your kids on a local little trail or a nature walk and pick up trash. But check that one out. It's free also. And that's sponsored by the governor's office of, I gotta read that. Governor, sorry, I changed screens again. Okay, Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. But just, again, type in Every Kid Outdoors and add Utah to the end, and then it will come up. And if you have any trouble finding it, email me. I'll send you the links directly. And so just another great program that we can tell our clients about, because I really think that sometimes on these programs, it's just a lack of awareness. And if you don't happen to stumble onto it or know somebody that's done it, then you never know. And so you could even print a few of these off so the parents could see them and see how easy it is to do. Does anybody have any questions about that particular program? I'm a huge fan of that because, again, it's done by our very own state. And I love the fact that they're taking an interest in trying to get kids outside. All right, well, we're kind of winding down for time. I have, this is one of my all-time favorite videos. I find a reason to use it for just about everything because I think we can apply it to everything. So you'll get a chuckle out of it. So go ahead, we'll watch it, and then we'll chat for just a second.
Whoa, that's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something?
Help!
I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, there's not enough left to do, is there?
Hello? Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he can fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.
Okay, hopefully you got a good chuckle out of that. So my question is, are we like the people on the escalator? We're so used to doing something. We're so caught up in how we go about our day each day and our routines and kind of stuck in our ruts, whatever, that we don't realize, just like, you know, they thought they were stuck on the escalator. All they had to do was walk off. But do we recognize the opportunities we have around us every day? Maybe you don't live in an area with a nice city park, but even walking around your neighborhood where people have, if they have grass lawns or some trees, or even if you can just drive 5 or 10 minutes to get to somewhere where you could be in nature a little bit, and take advantage of those opportunities that are really kind of right there at our fingertips. And like some of the programs I shared with you, they don't cost money. You don't have to go a long ways away. You don't have to be an expert in the field. And it's something that we can all take advantage of. So I challenge you guys to think about that, and don't be the guy that gets stuck on the escalator. Look for that simple solution. John Muir, I really love his quotes, but in every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks. And I really do believe that. I've seen myself become more productive by being outside. I've watched some of my kids struggle emotionally, physically, whatever, and it seems like there's always just a little bit of improvement when I can convince them to get outside, go for a hike, go for a walk, just do something outside. So does anybody have anything they'd like to add? I'm definitely not the only one that knows about this. I'm not the expert. I am very passionate about it because I do it for my own mental health. I realize there's different answers for different people, but find what works for you. And if you have that park just down the street, just, unwind in the day and go for a short walk around it. Sit on the bench and watch people walk their dogs. There's a lot of benefit in doing something like that too, because maybe we can't all walk. I have a sister that really is not very mobile, but just sitting on a chair watching other people be outside and having her be outside while she does it actually really is beneficial to her as well. So there's lots of ways to take advantage of nature. And I would just encourage you to be very intentional when you're working with the people that you teach. Not everybody makes the same connections, and sometimes we need to help them have that aha moment. We need to help ourselves have that aha moment, and just help them realize that this doesn't need to be daunting. And like somebody mentioned in the chat, we don't have to have an expensive gym membership to reap the same benefits, and often sometimes even more than if we had the gym membership. So thanks for joining us today. And if you have any trouble accessing any of those things I mentioned, please email me. If you can't find my email, reach out to Marsha or one of those other gals and they'll connect you to me. But thanks again, and I appreciate all of your comments and your input. And have a great day. Go outside for a little walk sometime today.
Thank you so much, Andrea. That was amazing. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Make sure to put your name in the chat if you haven't so that you get added to the roll. And everyone have a great rest of your week.